Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Potato Chips and Cake, navigating the conversation of emotional eating and holiday blues. Tonight is session one, and I am joined by some really awesome people who are going to be on here sharing their stories, sharing their experiences. Now, as you all know, this is a two-part session. So tonight's session, we are solely focusing on the holiday blues. And then next Monday at 8 p.m., I want you to come back and we're talking about emotional eating. So tonight, let's talk about who's on this with me, okay? So I have KJ on here and he's gonna share his story. He is a young adult and KJ is dear to my heart. I always say I used to be his youth minister back in Hillsborough, North Carolina. And so it's been so awesome watching him come up in ministry. He's doing awesome things. So happy to have you here, KJ. I also have Dominique. Dominique is here, right here in Charlotte with me. We met about a year ago through some things I was doing with the women's conference, and she just brings not only a wealth of knowledge, but Black woman brilliance, okay, all right there, and you'll learn more about her. And last but not least, we have Evie. Evie and I went to high school together. You see how God connects that? And so it was through our grief. So she's lost her mom, I lost my mom years apart. However, it was through grief and through my company focusing on grief that we connected and decided that there were some projects we wanted to work on together. So I'm happy to have her. Those are the individuals who will be sharing their story. Now, right here on your screen beside me, right here. He's on this side. This is Cam. Cam is a counselor. He's a school counselor and therapist. He's been in the game for 6 years. And throughout this conversation, I think it's so important when we talk about holiday blues, when we talk about emotional eating, when we talk about emotional, physical, mental wellness, it's important to me that we have a therapist on to bring language, to bring that added value, to help with coping skills, right? And to really continue to add as we have this conversation. That is exactly what tonight is. It's a conversation. It is not a prescription. It is not a how-to. These are just some vulnerable individuals who say, look, I've gone through this. Here's how I went through it. Here's how I'm going through it. And hopefully it's our hope that it meets somebody at the very point of our need. So we're going to go ahead and jump into things. So tonight, again, we're talking about holiday blues. Dominique, go ahead and kick off our conversation. Tell us about your experience with holiday blues.
Yeah, I think for me, where I come in at is I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I'm very, very busy, and I can get really down because sometimes I'm too busy to be able to do family things. Mm-hmm. Also, my family's in sports. So November typically kicks off college basketball season. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of pressure for my family. It's fun for a lot of people to watch, but growing up in the industry, how the season starts, I would be like, well, will I have to move? Will I have to switch schools? So, having to deal with that, watching how hard my family has to work and going to games, and combined with being an entrepreneur, I just feel like the holidays for a lot of people are such a good time, where for me it's just so much stress. Right. And I didn't for years get to enjoy that. Mm-hmm. I journal a lot, so over the last few years I've been able to kind of say, oh wow, so okay, around November I get really, really sad.
Wow. And so was it through your journaling that you really recognized it? Is that what you were saying? Through your journal, is that where you recognized the blues were kind of showing up? Yeah. Now, KJ, tell me about your story. Tell me about how you experienced seasonal blues. And I think it's really interesting. And I appreciate you, sir, because you are a minister. And I think it's so important that people recognize that leaders in the faith world and the faith community can experience holiday blues as well, that we are not immune from the same stressors. We're not immune. We just know the one who's over the stressors. Amen. Who can make the stresses go away. So either way, KJ, I appreciate you being on today. But please go ahead and tell me, bro, tell me about your experience with holiday blues.
So I would say mine started around when my great grandmother passed. I was still in high school. I was still playing sports. I played football all 4 years, and I never actually recognized what was going on. However, my wide receiver coach from school actually kind of noticed what I was going through and how I dealt with the grief of my great grandmother passing. through holiday blues. As interesting as it is, I once she passed, because we spent so much time with her at a nursing home every year, it wasn't necessarily a tradition to us, but we were just obligated. We knew what it was when it came to Thanksgiving and
Yeah.
Christmas, that we weren't necessarily going to be gathered around, fellowshipping at home, but we would
Right.
be at Brookshire Nursing Home in Hillsborough,
Yeah.
to be there with my great grandmother. And so her passing, the following year, holidays have just never, they've just never been the same, because that tradition in which I was so used to, is no longer there. And so going and gathering. I remember when we gathered at my aunt's house, the year following that, I could just simply tell that just even being in the presence of all my family was a bit overwhelming for me,
Right.
because I wasn't used to being around everybody without my great grandmother there.
Mhm.
And so I found myself, coming late, leaving early,
Yeah.
kind of being by myself, would much rather not answering as many phone calls. Actually, with ministry, not accepting many engagements from November to January, simply because I needed some way to grieve through this, because just a funeral just wasn't enough for me. I was just so used to her presence that I found myself, even just going out to Eflin Cedar Grove field just to be by myself, playing football by myself, throwing it up in the air and catching it, wanting to be alone, because I had to deal with this somehow.
Wow. Wow. And last but not least, Evie, tell us about your experience with seasonal blues.
So I did lose my mother to a rare cancer. It was February of 2014 when she passed.
Mhm.
So I will say the first few holidays, it just sucked. It's like I didn't even want them to come because everything was so in your face, especially that first year.
Mhm.
And so now going in 6 years with this, it doesn't get better. For me, it's gotten maybe a little easier, but I
Mhm.
always do find myself being in this weird funk. And I've tried to like kind of reevaluate and see why. But I really do think it's just the holiday blues. And I didn't know
Yeah.
that was a term
Yeah.
until I started
Right.
reading up on it and everything. But
Yeah.
for me, everything happens towards the end of the year for our family. My dad's birthday is September, I'm October, my mom November, my brother December, and then you got the holidays thrown in there towards the end of the year too. So like the end of the year used to be exciting.
Mhm.
But right around, I would even subconsciously see right around my birthday on through the rest of the year, I'm just like very agitated, very annoyed to myself. It's probably rude to some people to say, don't ask me what I'm doing for the holidays because I don't know. I still don't know what to do. And because our family lives out of state, we don't have any family here. I only have my dad, and recently my brother moved to New Hampshire, and with my niece. So literally it's just me and my dad, and my husband's family lives in Alabama. So
Okay.
it's literally just me and my husband. And so it's tough. People are asking you, oh, how was your holiday? Or have a good holiday. Spend time with your family. Someone emailed me today, and I'm just like, thank you. I hope you do too.
Right.
Because it's just not exciting and something I look forward to be honest.
Yeah, and you mentioned something really interesting, Evie, when you said I didn't even know what it was. And so, for any of our viewers who perhaps don't know what holiday blues is, Cam, can you provide some insight there, sir? How can we define holiday blues, just so that we can all be on just the same page, and working off the same really definition there? What is holiday blues? How can we define it?
So for holiday blues, I believe it's situational, and I believe that holiday blues is connected by trauma and triggers, mental health, and just your everyday life. And so, for example, some have mentioned death in the family, so it may be during a winter time, and it might be during the holidays. And so, when those times come up, it brings back those feelings and those emotions that you experience during that time of death. And so it kind of carries on to you, and it reminds you of it. So you might create those, it might create holiday blues.
Right, right. Thanks, Cam. So for any of you, for Dominique, KJ, Evie, what might you say are your triggers? Like, are there certain triggers whereby when we get around this season, you're like, oh, there it is, there it is, there that. Are there any triggers that any of you notice in particular?
I think for me, like it's so funny that Evie says that. It's like my personality is so short and harsh.
Mm.
So everything's a trigger, and it's very unfair to the people around me. And I think that a lot of times it's like, oh my God, she's so mean. She's so short. She's so rude, and it's like, that's not who I am at all. And so some triggers for me that I notice are like people asking me to do things. Like I'm trying to do things for myself.
Right.
I can't do things for other people when I can barely do things for myself. So then there are people like, whoa, I just asked you, could you tell me what such and such, just something so small could turn into like a big thing. And I'm like, man, that's not who I am as a person at all.
Right.
And then from there, I spiral into like guilt. So then I'm like, okay, so now like I was mean and now I'm like embarrassed and now I feel guilty and now I don't want to come around and now I'm going darker because I want to be by myself and, because I don't want to be mean to people. So I just feel like it's like a constant spiral into, feeling darker and darker and darker just because I just needed like a little bit of space at that time. So triggers for me are people asking me to do things, not getting enough stuff done, not feeling productive, those kind of things have been triggers for me.
Right. And you just hit that. You just said something there, Dominique. When you talk about not feeling productive enough, I know for me personally, around the time, so my mom died in August, my dad in November was given 4 weeks to live, and then in December he died, right? So we're talking about 4 months apart, both of them dying. And during the time when I noticed every year around this time, and I won't even notice it, like I'm like, I am good, I am fine, this is my year. And all of a sudden I have like a whole checklist. I'm like, why can't I get this done today? Like I had to, like, I'm so much harder I find on myself during that time or during this time. Cause we're in November and I find that I just like things that usually I'm like, bam, bam, bam. I get it done. I am like, like, I mean, it is like sloth pace, just to kind of get through some of those things. So I find a lot of relatability in what you're saying, especially when you communicate with maybe not getting as much done. Anyone have any other triggers that they experience? Any other triggers? And if not, it's fine. I'll go. We had several people submit questions, so I have other questions I can go to. Is there anyone else who had any other triggers regarding your holiday blues?
I think, to add on to what you said, mine, especially because my great grandmother died when I was still in high school. So it came around this time period where, you hit September, you go into October, and all of a sudden it goes from good morning and have a great day to, good morning, happy holidays. And so for me, not understanding, that was a trigger for me. Because as soon as we get to the holidays, I'm like, well, your holidays might be happy. But that's not who I am to say that. So I just accepted happy holidays, move on. But as the holidays progressed and got closer, I saw my productivity go down. My grades go down. Even my interest in stuff goes down. Even relationship wise, not wanting to be in a relationship during this time of the year simply because I don't want to have to explain myself because I don't know how to explain myself.
Wow.
So.
Wow. And that brings up a good point. And so another question that I have, and it came in and some people wanted to know, do you all communicate? How do you, or this is a two-part, do you or do you not communicate about your holiday blues to friends and loved ones? Like, do you all communicate about it, or is it like a unsaid thing? Like, how does that work? I guess the question is, how do you communicate or not communicate about the holiday blues?
For me, this has been the first year that I communicated about it, and people haven't been that receptive. People expect me to just be like, "Oh, well, your life is so great. Like, what are you complaining about? Like, well, fine. Like, why are you acting like that? So this is the first year I'm like, hey. So then I just like isolated myself. I'm like, don't call me. Like, I can't take your calls. So I just don't want to be around anybody because I'm trying to tell you, like, I'm not okay. You're not listening to me. No one's respecting my boundaries. And
Right.
I have to just be by myself.
Right. Right.
I would say
Me,
to tag along to what she said. You know, I found myself, you know, kind of telling my closest friends, and I will say they were very accepting, you know, of it and understanding as much as they could.
Right.
But like I said earlier, you know, I guess just the toughest part is being able to explain something you don't understand.
Right.
So it's like tough to be able to communicate to them, other than simply me just saying the words, I don't like the holidays,
Right. Right.
you know.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. And Evie, can you hear us, Evie? Okay, I know Evie's working through some of the tech stuff. So Evie, as soon as it comes back, just jump in and
I
start
can. Are
talking.
you able to hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay. I would say for me, with my husband, he kind of pushed me to talk about it. I didn't have that safe space before, because they didn't understand and he wasn't present to even meet my mom. So I think that welcoming environment and someone actually asking me helped me and has tremendously helped me try to communicate with others. So sometimes I do share with my friends, but I don't like to do it as freely during the holidays because I feel like I don't want to dampen the mood, or I don't want to talk about my issues because you guys are planning your families and what you're getting your kids and what you're getting your mom and all this. And I'm just like, I can't relate. So I don't want to say, well, this is how I feel. Or, you know, sometimes around the holidays, people get overwhelmed and they complain about family. And I'm just sitting here like, well, I wish I had, you know, someone to complain about.
Yeah.
So it's getting better to talk about. And I thank my husband for just creating that space to where he wanted to know, or he just like, just say it. Or if you're mad, he just lets me be mad. If I have an attitude, or he knows not to take it personal, and that has helped me because he'll just let me be. And if I need to cry or whatever, or even if I don't know, he's just like, that's just what happens. It'll be okay. And so that has helped tremendously now.
Right, right. I love that you said that. And this really gives way into a question for you, Cam. And I'll come back to the general questions as well. But Cam, what can family members do? Like, what can family members do to help support those loved ones who they know get a little different around the holidays, who they notice they might be a little sadder? And we can be clear, it's not always attached to grief, right? Sometimes it's just a shifting of season, it's memory, it can be anything, right? And so with that, for those of us who might say, hey, you know, we notice there's some holiday blues going on with someone, something like, what can we do? Evie offered some really good information. And when she said, you know, providing that safe space. Also when she said, you know, asking perhaps, but then there's also the wrong way to do it, which is what Dominique was communicating, I believe, when she was like, you know, they can't get offended at everything, you know, like there has to be this. So as family members and loved ones who see their loved ones perhaps kind of going through or experiencing the holiday blues, what can we do as loved ones, as friends, as family, as church family? Like, what can we do to lift our loved ones up?
Definitely. I heard a lot of buzzwords with boundaries and safe place. So I'll go more in depth in that. So that was really good. But I feel like a really good start is understanding and empathy and just, you know, trying to put yourself in their shoes, but not making it about you. I hear sometimes where, you know, you talk to people and they're like, oh, well, that happened to me too. And, you know, it's not about you at the moment.
Right.
So it's understanding where they're coming from to the best of your ability, but also letting them know that, you know, I'm here for you and what's going on in your life. And also, like I said, giving the space when they need it, but also being there when they need you to be present, be fully present. Right. I also think providing healthy resources such as finding maybe a therapist or even finding resources for things that make them happy. If you notice something that makes them happy and they don't have that resource, but you know things that they like, you know, help. So there's so many things that you can do. And I would say, you know, praying together. I don't know everybody's belief, but, you know, praying together, being faith, leading into your faith. And like I said, just being present when you're needed and support as much as you can.
Right, right. I love that, Cam. You offered some really, really good areas there. And we're going to hear more from Cam a little bit later as well with some more other questions and stuff. But while I still have the interviewees on the phone, let me ask you all a couple more questions. One of the questions that came in was, what are some productive remedies in navigating the space of holiday blues, and what has been unproductive? So once you acknowledge like, hey, I'm a little different around the holidays, what were some things perhaps that you were like, this worked great, I do this now, this is how I get through, and what are some things you're like, that wasn't the best choice? So two-part question, and you all answer what has been productive in helping and what has been unproductive.
Okay, I'll jump in and start. So for me, this is new, being productive. So I'm just trying it out. So, so I don't know. I just started it. But the first thing that I've been doing is I started exercising. So, you know, I know the next chat's more about eating and stuff like that, but not gaining weight through the holidays is going to be something that's going to make me feel good and feel better. So I joined a new gym for 8 weeks.
Nice.
Instead of like being at home and doing things like that, and like in my sorrow, I've been getting up every morning and working out and, you know, getting my blood moving and just, you know, getting those endorphins going. So that's just one thing. The second thing is like eating healthy. You know, so like, yes, it's the holidays and I'm going to eat on Thanksgiving and I'm going to have a better relationship with food and all of that good stuff. But I also don't have to eat like that every single day just because Thanksgiving's next week.
Right.
So putting nutritious things into my body and respecting my body is another thing, because like I know when I eat like crap, I feel like crap. So, you know, taking care of my body is also going to help take care of my mind. And then the third thing that I've been doing is I've been allowing myself time to say, you know what, if I need to take a step back or if I can't do something that other people want me to do, I just have to choose me and I can't do it.
There you go.
Two things. This is new, so I'll know next year how it works.
I'm gonna call you into that interview next year. We'll see you next year.
But for now, that's what I started. So
right, and I love the fact that you said say no, because especially for those, and I believe everyone this time, from what I know about each one of you individually, you have people who call on you for different things, right? So whether it's work, whether it's church, whether it's family, whether it's friend, like you all are that strong friend, right? And so with that in mind, I think that for sometimes it can be hard for people to see that strong friend still being strong, but being strong in a way that looks a little less sociable, that looks a little less friendly, that looks a little bit less in your face. And so for us, sometimes that can be really challenging in saying no, simply because of people's expectations, right? And then we end up going through it like, Jesus, take the wheel, like every second. So I appreciate what you shared there. KJ, talk to me, KJ. What has been productive? What has been unproductive for you in navigating holiday blues?
I think I would say number one is it's kind of, as ironic as it might be, is keeping my mind, more steady on something other than the holidays. So kind of keeping myself distracted. So I might do things such as get more involved in church, like even more than what I was already, or I find myself maybe going to the courts, or like she said, exercising, things of that nature that can take up most of my time. And so that I don't have the opportunity to sit down with the reality of what time of year it actually is. But I've on second thought, I've also found myself balancing my time. So trying to make sure, like she said, that, if I need time to focus on myself, I have to say no. And trying, it's toughest thing ever, trying to convince people who you're so used to saying yes to that your no is not a sign of I don't like you or disrespect, but your no is my yes. So I have to say yes to myself in order to even build the courage up to say, you know what, I can do something. And so I'm glad that I've gotten to that point to be able to, just simply, I can't do anything for anybody else if I'm not okay myself. But I will say my holiday blues has really it's really helped me talking to some of my mentors and things of that nature, learn that it is okay to, not be okay. But I have to be able to acknowledge that. And so that's why I kind of use to balance my time. And I even started a journal that I journal in just to simply, be able to express the emotions that I didn't even know were there.
Yeah. I love it. And Evie, and we're about to get a new participant in this interview. If you would jump in. Have another person join. Wyatt joining us in this interview. Evie, would you tell us what has been productive and unproductive ways of navigating holiday blues for you?
I've definitely tried my fair share of things. So at the beginning, I could definitely say the first few years, I just kept busy. Whatever busy was for me, whether that was helping others, just whatever I could to distract my mind and not focus in, because I knew that day would come anyway. So I was like, all right, let me just do all these other things. But it wasn't productive in the long run because it was kind of like a running mechanism to not have to face what was happening. So I will say it wasn't until about last year or really this year, kind of like they were saying, I've allowed myself to just not be okay. You mentioned being a strong friend. That's kind of the title I inherited, even within my family. It's always, I'm the go-to for everything. And so to be honest, I was getting even more down sometimes because everyone comes to me, but when are you guys going to ask me, are you okay? Or do you need something? Because we don't ask. And then I started feeling guilty because I'm like, I shouldn't have to ask somebody to ask me what I need. I do these because I'm this type of person. But what I realized is I couldn't set those expectations for others to disappoint myself. So if I didn't want to be disappointed, I just needed to share how I felt and being more comfortable with that, especially with closer friends. So I've been a little more open in being able to do that. So that has helped me feel better because we've had conversations about those things. It's not always easy, simple conversations, because you can't fully explain why you feel or how you feel. And one day you might be okay, and then the next minute you're not. And it's like you try to balance your relationship, your friendships, work, and everything else under the sun and yourself, and everyone's not going to understand if they just haven't had to go through that. So it's very difficult to communicate sometimes as well. But
wow, you all have given such good, just really insight, and there's no doubt in my mind that the level of relatability that you all are offering, like I can just feel like the amens of people watching, like yes, and I think you all bring up some really interesting things. And I think it's also interesting, each one of you happen to experience it quite differently, right? So it can be one title, but I think you all are a perfect example of how it's not cookie cutter. It doesn't always look the same, right? So whether you're KJ and you're launching yourself, into more things, or whether you're more withdrawn, or whether you're in between, I think you all really show a good example of this how it does look different. Now, for you all, let me ask this, and this is a final question for you all before I turn things over to Cam to ask some more therapy specific questions, and that is, does it end like for and this question is going to be different from everyone, and so my question is, when for you do the seasonal blues end? So for example, for me, I have the anniversary of Mom's death in August. Then I have my birthday in October, right? Then November, I'll never forget, learning Dad was passing. He died in December. Well, then there's Mom's, then there's Mom's birthday in January, And so keeping this in mind, there's that, again, that packing of things. And so my question is, for you all, have you all felt as if the holiday blues for you all in, like, what is that point where you're like, I can breathe? right? So all of you acknowledge when it kind of the onset of it, but when can you breathe? When is that moment of, and not the moment that everything's perfect and, you know, but that moment where at least you know you made it through another year. Like, what is that for you? What is that for you?
Now, for me, I try to travel through it. So for the last few years, I go to South Africa around New Year's, and then I get to be so blessed by like being with people who I really love and care about, and meeting new people and going to townships and like exploring, and in the whole South African culture, it's like, you know, like life is good, and like it's like, it's a different dynamic. So for me, it's kind of around New Year's. And then I have a little cousin who's like a little brother of mine, and his birthday is January 3rd, and it's like he's my best friend in the whole world. So like January 3rd is his birthday, so it's always one of my favorite days of the year. So I would always say probably his birthday is like one of my favorite days, and it's like the day to honor my best friend and like my baby and my brother. So for me, it's probably January 3rd, I would say.
Nice, nice. What about you, KJ?
I would say definitely when the kind of the new year hits. Mine has just, I'm churchy. Mine has always just been that watch night service.
Yeah.
I kind of get to the watch night service, and I kind of come to the realization that, hey, you know, you made it.
Yeah.
You made it, and you know, and then I don't, because you know that time period from October to December is most of my family's birthdays and all that good stuff. But once I hit January, I'm kind of like, okay, I can breathe,
Right.
and I can kind of move on for right now,
Right.
until that time comes again. So mine would definitely be probably that New Year's.
Nice, nice. And Evie, what about you?
Mine lingers a little bit. So if I really have to dig deep, I would say it kind of comes on late October all the way through February. The new year just doesn't knock it out the park for me quite yet, because February is the same month we found out she had the cancer. She passed away in February, so it just kind of lingers into February as well. But maybe late February going into March. I think for me too is looking forward to daylight savings time and warmer weather. It makes me more exciting. It makes me want to be out more or be more active, where right now it's like it's too cold. It's dark at 5. So for me, it's the warmer weather. Also, my husband and I like to travel for our birthdays, and we just get to do a little more at that, as there's more daylight, there's more things to do outdoors, and I like to be active. So that helps me in my mood as well. So I would say that, but I don't think it ever really goes away, because there's little things throughout the year. Like when we got married, it like triggered it again to think of that, and just certain conversations, it kind of like brings it back. And you have Mother's Day, and it's just like, but overall, I think it gets better with the weather.
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate each one of you. And one of the reasons, and I debate on whether or not even ask the question when it came in, like, when does it end? Only because it's so different for everybody. Right. And I didn't want to make it appear as if there's a prescriptive, like it has to end by this date. But all of you provided such different answers, which I think is so reflective of the differences of it, right? The differences of what it looks like. And so I appreciate, again, each one of you, your transparency. All of you are leaders in your respective communities. So just your willingness to come on in a space that people aren't used to seeing you. Right. So Evie, I'm used to seeing the workout video, you know, that your whole journey of doing all of your marathons and stuff. KJ in a pulpit, Dominique traveling the world, you know. So for all of these powerhouses to come together on one Zoom gives people permission to grieve in whatever way that looks like, gives people permission to say, you know what, sometimes I don't feel okay, you know, gives people permission, and specifically people of color and other nationalities. I think it's so important, because we will hold it in and just be like, nope, we're great, we're fine, you know, fighting the good fight, you know, when actuality, no, you know, we need to have these. And so this is where the conversation transitions. So Dominique, KJ and Evie, you all are welcome to Log Off. Thank you so, so much. I love you all. And now I'm jumping into things with you, Cam. Cam, the spotlight is on you, sir. And so, Cam, here's my question. Well, there's a series of questions here for you, sir. And some of them are really just, here it is. For one, what is the difference between seasonal blues and depression? Like what is the difference, or are they the same thing?
So they can have similarities, but technically you cannot diagnose somebody with seasonal blues. Depression is a mood disorder, and so there are treatments and interventions that go along with the depression disorder.
Yeah.
So they are different, but they have similarity. And so what I say is I do believe that seasonal blues can, or holiday blues can lead to depression. And that depends on how severe your feelings are and emotions and the longevity of them, as well as the reoccurrence of the feeling. And so if it's something that you feel like you can't control, or something that's, it's like, wow, okay, now I was feeling like this, but now I'm feeling another layer of a feeling that I can't control. And so it's like, maybe it's something to look into to see if it can be some type of, a mood disorder, something like that.
Right. So perhaps if it lingers for too long or something, and how do people get help for it, I guess? So if someone's like, you know what they said is me, but I feel like that all year long, right? So for that person, is it something, can they just Google help? Like, what are they looking for? A counselor? Like, how does someone find a counselor, I guess?
So just by asking questions, I mean, there are websites where you can look up. There's through insurance, there's, your local hospital that you go to get recommendations. So there's different touch points. If you're a part of a community, like a church community, reaching out to the prospective person that can lead you to that resource. So definitely looking around you. You don't have to have the answer right there, but just opening your mouth and communicating can get you far and into the right place.
Right. And I love how you mentioned that, because people forget your faith communities. We often have resources, right? So to let us know when you need help. We often have resources or referrals. I know my husband and my church here in Charlotte, Greater Fellowship, when people need counseling, we actually will refer out. Whereas the church where I'm a team pastor in Greensboro, whereas we actually offer biblical counseling to members. So keeping that in mind, again, I'm glad you mentioned faith communities. I myself, and I tell people this simply to encourage other people. And that is that I went through therapy after my parents died. I absolutely went through counseling. And I remember the first time I didn't know what to say, I called, I was like, my mom died the other day. And I need help, right? I didn't know what to say. And I think sometimes we don't get help from therapists because we're like, well, we don't know the right thing to say. And we don't know exactly. Y'all, all I did, viewer, look, okay, all I did was call in and said, this is what happened. I don't know what to do. And the lady was so awesome. And she was like, no problem. I'm connecting you with such and such. Can you come in tomorrow? So, and that was when I was a student in seminary at Emory. And so for those college students watching, I contacted my what is it called? The therapy, the counseling department. I simply contacted the counseling department at my university, and they were able to connect me with those services. So again, if you are feeling these feelings, again, even if it isn't through death, but if you're just feeling this elongated heaviness, get help. Help is there for us. Now, another question that came in, Cam, is there a particular race or demographic that is more likely to experience holiday blues?
Okay, so a lot of studies have shown that minorities, specifically African American or Hispanic, Latinx, suffer from depression. So that can be from many different reasons, from mental health, of course, and just from, everyday life situations like lack of health care, racial disparities in our justice system, police brutality, lack of resources in our community, and just the day-to-day struggle that we face. And so going through those things on day-to-day basis can definitely connect to holiday blues. Is because, like I said, it may be triggers for you. It may be something that you experience at a certain part of the year. And so you connect that as years come up. So I definitely say in our minority, in our communities, we face a lot. And so that definitely can connect to our holiday blues.
Yeah. Those are good points. Now, let me ask you this. Are holiday blues preventable? Like, are there things we can do to prevent holiday blues?
So I do believe decisions can kind of play a part in holiday blues in some, and I'll give examples.
Okay.
I do think it can be preventable, but I think it can't. So I depends on which way you're looking at it. So for example, if somebody makes a poor decision, like for example, a poor decision at their job, and they end up losing their job, and now they don't have money to give gifts for their family based off of the poor decision that they made. They may start to build up holiday blues. So that's something that it was on you to make that decision. And now you're reaping the repercussions of it. And so in that sense, it's like, I don't want to say it's coming to you, but that goes into making our decisions. Now, on the other hand, if like we're talking about death, like I actually lost my father when I was in 9th grade, and it was during January, and it was a couple days before his birthday in February. So it's like, that's something you can't help. And every time around that time, I feel myself feeling blue. And like you mentioned before, you can be in a rhythm, you can be doing good, and then out of the blue, you're like, wait, why am I off? And you're like, oh, wait, I recognize this is an anniversary. So I really do think, and like I said, some things are just situational. You can be away from college and you can't come home. And so, you can't control that. I mean, of course it's a decision, but you're looking out for you to get your education, but you can't go home, of course, to be with your family. And military, people can't, if they're being deployed and they're gone for a time, and you can't be with them for the holidays, you're going to get those holiday blues. So I definitely think it's situational, but it's more or less preventable than what it is on our own.
Right. You brought up some really good examples and points there. So let me ask you this final question. I know I've brought up everything you ever learned in in school. I know we've been picking it out today.
That's what I'm here for.
Final question for you. Final question for those individuals who are experiencing holiday blues. What coping skills? Like, so for those individuals who are like, you know what, it's not for me. It wasn't prevented this year. I'm in the midst of it. Or for those individuals who are like, December's coming, I know I'm on the cusp of it, help kind of situation. What are some coping skills? Some individuals who experience holiday blues, what are some coping skills that they might use?
Definitely. So I'm gonna list some, and I'll go more depth in others because I feel like the panel did a very good job of giving some examples that I don't need to keep digging in. But I do want you in the back of your mind to remember time is key, and there is no time limit on when seasonal blues should end or would end or will end. So just, doing the best that you can with your coping mechanisms is all I ask for you to do. And so for those who might be writing them down, I'll kind of list them point by point, and then I'll go in depth in some of them.
Perfect.
So a big one, which is a big stigma, especially in the Black and Brown community, is not seeking therapy. I was that person. I wish I would. My mother tried to get me to seek therapy when I was younger. My father passed. I wish I would have done it, but that's kind of what pushed me into becoming into this is a becoming part of this field. Is I see the benefits of seeking therapy and counseling and things like that. Also, somebody earlier mentioned keeping a journal or even keeping a recording. Sometimes, you have to know your kind of learning style. Like I'm kinesthetic, I'm more hands-on, and some people are more visual or auditory. So whatever kind of works with you. So maybe if you're hands-on, writing down, and if you're visual, kind of reading back to you what's going on, so you can kind of process. And self-reflection is so important. And so that's a good way to kind of connect to your self-reflect by doing journaling or music, which I'm a music head. I love poetry, writing songs, and things like that. So I would also say, set something that you are looking forward to. I heard somebody said that they kind of go on a trip, and for me, when I know I'm going on a trip and I need to get, lose a little weight.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, okay, before I was like, I'll eat that. But when I'm going on a trip, I'm like, put that down. Don't try to give me the fried chicken. Give me the shrimp.
Come on.
So definitely have something that you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
Creating a routine or a schedule can be important. And what I do is, and I work with my students like that all the time, is creating routine and a schedule. It keeps you busy. So for times where, you know, they say an idle mind is dangerous. And so when you have those times where you don't really have a lot going on and you're just lost in your thoughts, keeping a routine and a schedule can help with that and offset those idle moments.
Yeah.
I would also say replace negatives with positives. So for a small example, if you're listening to sad or depressing songs, switch it up. Listen to some upbeat tempos. Listen to that gospel song, that you know, the Kirk Franklin, the stomp to get you know, moving, you know what I'm saying? And so there's nothing wrong with listening to songs to cater to your mood, but that's just a small example of turning like not negative things, but turning something that might bring you down and switch it, and you'll see that your mood will be able to change. One activity that I like to do with my students is I tell them to write positive things on sticky notes and place those sticky notes on high traffic places that you go. And so, so for example, you know, one of my students, she's of darker complexion and she has lighter siblings, and she feels like that she doesn't get that love that her siblings do. And so we wrote down some things like, you know, I'm Black and I'm beautiful, and I love my skin, and, you know, positive things. And she placed them all over the place. And every time, before she can even look up, she sees it right there in her face, and it reminds her of the positive things that, you know, about herself.
That's right.
And so, and I'm sorry if I'm going really fast.
No, this is good, because the good thing is replay. Family, do not forget, as he is going through, if you need a replay, I'm leaving this on this page, and it will also be uploaded to KaiAwardCheers.com. So you all just know if you missed it, if you're like, wait a second, don't worry, just press replay. Give us about 10 more minutes and press replay. We'll listen to this whole thing. Go ahead, Cam.
Cool, thank you. Now, a couple more. Another good exercise is I do with my students is we write down things that are stressing us, right? And so first we put, you know, what we need and what we want and what our stressors are.
Yeah.
And then I tell them to write their stressors on individual sheets. And of course, with my students, I don't do the burn part, but with adults, you know, you write down and you crumble it up and you keep it in a drawer. And as long as that burden is with you, you keep it in the drawer. But when you're ready to let it go, for my students, they will, you know, cut it up and throw it away. But for my adults, they will burn it and let it shrivel out. And that is symbolizing that I have let that burden go and I'm ready to move on. So making connections to things is definitely important. So that's another exercise that you can do. Set your environment up. Your environment is important. I know somebody mentioned they don't like the cold winter months. I like the heat too. So when it's cold outside and it's dark outside, as you can see, my background, I got the, you know, the animal prints, the lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. So it kind of reminds me of the, you know, the warm Sahara desert type thing. So definitely creating your environment around you is important, and it can also kind of influence your mood. And I just have a few more.
Yeah, take your time, you're fine.
So a big thing that we as humans struggle with is trying to focus on things that we can't control. So you got to focus on things that you can. When you can focus on things that you can control, you'll see change. I know we can try to influence things that we can't control, but it's not always going to be in our power to make that change. So really hone in on what you can do and what you can change. Meditation and prayer, of course, is definitely a big thing. Sticking to your faith. We talked about exercise, eating healthy, and there's a wheel that I want you guys to look up if you can on your own time. It's called the self-care wheel.
Okay.
It focuses on every aspect of your life, your profession, your education, your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, and it's called the self-care wheel. And it gives you tips in the wheel for each part of your life to kind of give you some tools to put in your toolbox to kind of help you out with things that's going on in your life. And it kind of buckets it for you. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
I would also say creating new memories. I know for me, like when we talked about triggers, like when I smell certain things that reminds me of my father, I get sad, or like different foods or different, cultural things that that we shared. But remembering the good things about him is what kind of keeps me sane, and creating traditions with him. So, for example, my cousin lost his father, and when he got married, he had a picture of him up on, when they were up there on the stage part where they were getting married, and he was a part of the wedding. So, and my aunt, who was the grandmother, she keeps the picture of her son up on the wall. And so just, finding ways that you can create more memories or better memories, and to kind of not forget what happened and what was going on, but just to kind of build upon something new and create some good memories. And then the last thing I would say is how you talk to yourself is important. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for self-talk. And so you are the first person you hear when you wake up, and you are the last person you hear before you go to bed. So what you tell yourself is very important. And if you keep it negative, you're going to see negative. And that doesn't mean, everything is all lolly-dotty and flowers and candy and all that, but really talk to yourself in a good way, and you'll see some change in your life as well.
Wow. I could make a whole calendar every day. And you offer some good things. And I love the fact that you did offer the things that you did, because again, it really emphasized and reinforced and affirmed. The purpose of this whole conversation is that it's not cookie cutter. Right. Everyone's not going to journal. Everyone's not going to travel. Come here, COVID. Everybody's not going to, but it's the whole idea that everyone is going to do what works for them. Right. So if traveling is for you, if journaling is for you, if I like the idea of putting a piece of paper on fire. My husband used to be a fireman, so he's going to get me. He's probably watching this like, let me get the fire extinguisher. Right. And so I say that with so much joy in my heart, because you really have provided a lot of things. And our viewers, I am trusting and believing that our viewers too are seeing something, they're hearing something that's like, you know what? I haven't tried that. Because sometimes in this journey, you can feel like I've tried everything, but no, but you haven't tried such and such, So again, I want to thank you so much for your time, Kim. Thank you for what you do for the community, and certainly for what you've brought to this conversation. Family, do not forget to tune in next Monday, 8 p.m. Tune in for part 2 of Potato Chips and Cake. And for this series, or for that part 2, we're focusing on emotional eating. Y'all, we have some powerhouses in that conversation, and you do not want to miss. Look, before I close this, I want to do this. Let's go ahead and close in prayer, because if you're watching this tonight, I don't believe that you're watching by chance. I don't believe you just stumbled upon it randomly. I don't believe you came in just to see it for 2 seconds or so. I believe that if you are watching this right now, there's something about Holiday Blues or something that caught your attention in there. So I just want to pray with you. So let us pray. Father, we come to you right now. Thank you for each and every one of the participants in this conversation. Father, I thank you so much for the viewers, for those who are tuning in. My heart goes out to those, Father, who are experiencing holiday blues in this season. But I'm praying and asking that during this time, God, you would cover them, you would keep them, that perhaps for those who've experienced holiday blues for years, that something about this year feels different. Something about this year feels a little bit more freeing, a little bit more liberating. It is my prayer, God, that through this conversation, somebody heard something that met them at the very point of their need. Help us be reminded that on this journey, God, we are not alone, but you are with us, God. Connect us to the resources that we need, the help that we need on this journey to fulfill our God-given purpose. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Well, again, thank you. Wyatt says thank you. And thank you for watching, and all of you take care.